Perfection. Welcome everyone again. I am Miriam Trowell, the Manager of Teacher and Student Programs. We are so happy to have all of you with us for the seventh Folger Teacher Community Conversation. I'm joined by
her daughter Madison.
My daughter Madison and Corinne, and we also have some other special guests, and we are just so happy to have you all with us. I want to go ahead and there we go. Give me one moment.
Oh,
there we go.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Peggy in just a moment.
Yeah.
But this recording will be available tomorrow on our Teaching During COVID-19 page, along with some other things that Peggy is going to talk about in a little bit. You ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. So happy to see you guys. We missed you last week, though not so bad to have a week off. And of course, you don't have a week off, but we had a week off from you. So we missed you. If you're new, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're glad you're here. If you are not new, we're glad you're back. Before I forget, I want to say that we are, what I already said, which is that we're totally pleased to see you. We also are totally anxious to hear your voices tonight, and there's going to be a lot of chances for us to do that. And as usual, the privileged voices in this group are the people who are teaching kids every day. And that includes you if your kids took the AP exam today, and it includes you if your kids didn't take the AP exam today. Anyway, so if you are not a teacher, a classroom teacher, we are really happy to have you, but the people who are the rock stars in this room are the teachers, and so they get the airtime. This is a usual Folger rule, but I'm just saying it. So just to point out a couple things here, tomorrow morning, or tomorrow sometime, Miriam will tell us when, there's going to be new stuff up on the Teaching During COVID webpage. Something key will be recordings of the play-specific teams. So if you recall, we had 4 teams at your request. You wanted to work with people who were working on the same play you were. So Romeo, Mac, Midsummer, and Hamlet. And those teams, actually the Mac team is meeting one more time, which is late tomorrow, I understand it. And then after that, there will be 12 sessions. But until then 11 sessions will be up. All their meetings were recorded so that you can have the benefit of those, even if you couldn't get the time or the inclination to be there. The other thing, which is not new, is just the Folger Shakespeare, which is the Folger digital text. And we keep talking about that because it's really, really, really useful. Also, just to remind you that this webpage will be up until July 1st. And actually some things may be up past July 1st. The recordings of the audio recordings and also the video of the production of Macbeth, the rights to those, we have the rights to those to give those out freely to you until July 1st. And after that, we don't have those rights. And so you are teachers, so you know what I'm saying to you about if you want these things and you want to hang on to them, move sometime before July 1st. We want you to know that. Okay. Miriam, can I have the next slide really quickly to tell you? Great. So just to say, many people filled out the survey that we sent out to you guys. And so we got a lot of information and we're still processing some of it. But here's what we know based on what you've said. We've scheduled 3 more meetings, right? Which is next Wednesday. And one of the things we're going to focus on are paired texts, because you told us that's what you want, teaching Shakespeare and something else at the same time. On the 27th, we're going to focus on teaching something that is not Shakespeare using the Folger method. And then June 3rd, we think will be the wrap up for the summer. And because most of you who are not out by June 3rd will be out soon after that. This is all based on how long you guys are in school. And some people are already out of school, of course. And we're not sure exactly what to do on June 3rd. So in the chat box, if you want to do something else besides, in addition to pair text on the 20th, or on the 27th, or you've got an idea for some kind of end of summer, end of year blowout, which we can't figure out how to have a blowout on Zoom, But if you want to do that, let us know. And hang on a sec. Just to say what I already said about the webpage, what's on the webpage. Our new teacher member website will go up in the middle of July, and we'll let you know when that is. And then the last thing is that we're thinking about a back to school conversation, just kind of a end of the summer, looking at school on Wednesday, July 29th. Tell us what you think about that. So give us some, tell us either in the chat box or email us or something and tell us if you think that's a good idea or you'd be interested in that. And maybe now you don't know what you'd be interested in on July 29th. Maybe right now you'd be interested in nothing on July 29th, but tell us in any case. So what's going to happen tonight? Tonight, Miriam is going to introduce Christine Shagru, who has been on the Romeo, part of the Romeo group, the Romeo team. And she's going to share some stuff that they have been doing there. And then Corinne Villetta, who you guys already know, is going to take us through some, she's going to take us through a Folger essential about tone and stress. And that is going to set us up perfectly for some great work that we get to do with Kate Eastwood Norris and Cody Nickel. And I'm going to say more about them later. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Miriam and Christine, who's going to introduce Christine.
All right. So first of all, thank you, Christine, so much for joining us. She will pop up on your screen in a little bit if you have it in speaker view. Christine teaches 9th grade Western Studies English, AP Lit and Composition, and also a UConn early college experience. And I'm going to mess this up, Chippewa Valley School in Connecticut. And so she was part of Debbie Gascon's Romeo and Juliet group team. And so she is going to talk about how, what she learned, what challenge she had, what she learned, what she was able to take back and do with her students, and then like what happened as a result of that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Christine.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks so much. Hello, everybody. I'm in cold Connecticut. It's been chilly all week here. But I was asked to talk a little bit about the Romeo and Juliet group and the realizations and recognitions that I had when I joined that group. So it kind of goes back a long time. I've always been nervous about teaching a whole play because 9th graders get very antsy. So then what do you do when on March 13th you find out you're ready to teach Romeo and Juliet and you're doing it long distance? So my goal was to find out what Folgers could offer to help us out. So of course, this beautiful group and then the breakout group of Romeo and Juliet. But I did go back to some of the things that I learned in the Forsooth membership that I have. So Miriam, can I share my screen? I think she's saying yes. Okay, let me share my
stuff. Yeah.
Thanks. So I'll just share a couple of things that you probably already know, but this of course are the foundational principles, and this one is always important to me. It's a barrier, not a portal. And it's not a barrier, it's a portal. Let me get that right. But the idea with that is that all my special ed kids deserve a chance to really read Shakespeare's words. I'm convinced of that. Folgers is convinced of that. So how do I do it long distance? I use, of course, the start with the word, go with the line, go with the speech, and then eventually the whole play. And the one that really helped me out in the distance learning is the 20-minute plays. Because as I was confronted with, what do I do? 27-minute classes, the mess of getting everybody in the group and out of the group and finding Google Classroom, it was just too much for me to figure out. So I'll share my screen again and just show you that 20-minute Romeo and Juliet that is just beautiful. So what it has embedded in it that was so wonderful to me is these little emphasis speeches. And so I was able to give this to my students, you won't be surprised that almost every time we start a class about Romeo and Juliet, I have to read it again, and they have to read it again because they're nervous. Kids are nervous right now. They love being in my class. They show up 100%, but it's not clicking. So this is a wonderful resource to review and remind. And then I go back to these speeches, and I'll show you my Google Classroom. Because what I do in my Google Classroom is I take a little bit of speeches that I want them to do, and we study them, and we use a technique that I had developed a long time ago called coloring with words. I'll show you the piece. So this comes from Shakespeare in the Classroom. I don't know if any of you have seen that YouTube. I have this is on YouTube. Miramax sent it to all the teachers in the 1990s, and it was so wonderful. Then I couldn't find it because it was on video cassette, but now it's on YouTube, and it's a wonderful little introduction. I had actually done that before school broke for the COVID-19 break, but the kids didn't remember anything. So this 20-minute Romeo and Juliet just made a big difference. So we take the speeches, and then we use that line, we color Shakespeare's words. And I did a little thing, I think you saw right here, where I asked the students, just before we begin looking at Shakespeare, what's your favorite color? What do colors mean to you? This was actually a special ed kid who did an amazing job because she really loves her colors. And she wrote to me about her favorite colors and what they mean to her. We made a nice list. And this was just a Google Classroom assignment that was just plain and simple. Do you like colors? I also use a book that I will stop sharing for a minute to show you this book. There's a wonderful little piece in here from Kandinsky about the power of color. So I read that with them. It's a paragraph, kind of convince them that color matters. And then I'll show you the result, which I thought was pretty good stuff. I had to really maneuver this a little bit because I can't show you the students' names, but this is all during the quarantine. I have 27 minutes. Of that 27 minutes, I get about 15 of real teaching. But here's the speech that Capulet gives as he's welcoming people into the party. And this student decided to color it green. And she says she picked green because when I see the color green, I think of envy and making fun of someone. Here, Capulet is essentially testing the waters with the ladies, seeing which one will dance with him. Then Capulet writes, unplagued with corns, will walk about, meaning he's teasing and making fun of the ladies. And then she gives a little actor's note. I think the Capulet would be welcoming people into part and dancing around with them. He would be saying this speech with great passion and almost shouting to get the word out so everyone will know. And then she does yellow for the musicians because it reminds her of happiness and partying. And okay, this student is very thorough and she's a very good student. This one, not so much. So she picked her colors as well, just telling, green is disgusting. And he mentioned corns. So she got very close to the point. It was disgusting. And then down here in the yellow, she says the yellow because it looks cheerful and happy. But look what she did too. She used the color red because the lines were urgent, and the color gray, which was mysterious to her and kind of interesting. So the color thing just gives me a place to begin dialogue. And dialogue over Zoom is really tricky. Talk about wait time. It's not 30 minutes wait time like we've been taught. It's awkward time. So the color thing allows them to put a color in a chat, allows each other to talk about the colors if somebody's brave enough. And then in their Google Docs, it's really easy to color the lines and then in the comment box, write why they picked that color. So the 20-minute Shakespeare has been invaluable to me. It makes me feel confident that I'm doing enough of the play, and it gives me the target speeches that kids can look at and tell their side of the story. I think there's a podcast on Folgers that talks about the gaps in Shakespeare. So I tell them, there's gaps. You fill it in with the color you see, with your colors and the impression you get. And even kids who can hardly read can find a word that is urgent or boring or jealous. And I think it's gone pretty well. So
Awesome. Thanks, Christine. And I'm sure a couple of teachers have the question of like, how did, and Jane, I see your hand, and so I'll come to you in just a second. How did you, like with your, like, I guess Zoom or your whole class, how did you give them the different lines so that way they could get the language in their mouth?
so I
The
picked
20-minute
the
play.
speeches. Yeah, I picked the speeches that are highlighted in the 20-minute Shakespeare.
Mhm.
So it was very easy to just go to those sections, copy them from the Folger digital text, and put them on Google Classroom. So they had choices. I often put a man's voice and a woman's voice, so they could choose which set of words they wanted to look at, and then they color from there. So it's really quick and easy. And if we were in school, I'd say, how many people had red lines? You go and be the red group. How many people had, and then they'd act them out, or they'd cut, and they often, this is another thing I didn't even say, I do allow them to cut the scene. So if there's lines they don't understand, they can cut those right out and work with the lines they do understand. So the cut the scene is another great Shakespeare, Folger Shakespeare idea.
Thanks. And then if you have a question, you can go ahead and unmute yourself to ask the question. Jane, I think I saw your hand up a little while ago. Oh, I'll unmute you. There you go, Jane.
I was applauding her.
Oh.
Well, thanks. Thanks. It's how do you do these snippets of what you can do in these short periods of time, and with this distance, and because our school is such a wonderful public school, we have kids from all ranges, and I want to make sure that everybody gets to see Shakespeare's words as portals. I know I could pop in a movie, and I probably will in June 15th, but for now I want them to grapple with the words and see what they gather.
Thank you, Christine. Does anyone else have a question? You can go ahead and unmute yourself. Oh, Stephanie?
I feel like I'm cheating because I was a group leader, but I wanted to share some really great things that my group members did. We did a 20-minute Hamlet, and I was at a loss, okay, how do I get all these lines to you? Because I had pre-assigned them to all of our group members. Not everybody was there. So I put it out to the teachers in my group, and they said, why don't you just give us a number? We'll remember our number, and we'll just keep looping through the numbers. And at another time, Jackie, another fabulous group member, she used the chat box and assigned everybody numbers in the chat box, or would use the chat box to make groups. And then we had a place where we could all look at that and know when we were supposed to speak. So that was really helpful.
And I see that, I really don't want to say your name incorrectly. Ziri, she said that she assigned numbers, that she took attendance for the 20-minute play. And so I definitely think, like I got from Christine, I got from joining the meetings, that like, unfortunately with like distant learning, you are just not going to be able to teach the entire play to students. And guess what? That's okay, y'all. It's completely okay. And so you can use a 20-minute play to cover, just like Christine did, to cover the entire play. Because like, let's face it, everyone at Shakespeare's time, they knew the plot of the play before they went and saw it. So like, why disadvantage our students by not also giving them the plot? But this way you're making sure that you can get Shakespeare's language in students' mouths. I see Lori Simpson has asked, where can we find the 20-minute plays? The 20-minute plays for the 4 Folger Method Express, Macbeth, Hamlet, Othello, Macbeth. Okay, now my brain is just going. Midsummer, Romeo and Juliet, those are all on the Teaching During COVID-19 page. And so those are available to you. And then, like Peggy said, the recordings, as well as the Google document for the play-specific themes will also have the 20-minute plays for you. And so you'll have all of that available, because we do not want to leave you hanging. We certainly don't want to leave your students hanging as well. And if you have any other questions, you can always email me. Christine, thank you so much. Stephanie, thank you as well. And everyone else that asked a question and also shared how they help their students. Thank you as well. Thank you finally to, of course, our play-specific team mentor teachers. And then with that, I'm going to thank you again, Christine. I'm going to turn it over to Corinne.
Thanks, Miriam.
Yes.
Great. Just a quick note about 20-minute plays before you pull up the slides, Miriam. If you all want to look at the DC Public Schools distance learning plans too, we have 20-minute plays. They're the same ones, right? But you can see how how they've been adapted for distance learning in our public school district for Othello, for Hamlet, and for Romeo and Juliet. So it's still the same Folger 20-minute play, but we've got some additional notes on how to reach kids depending on their technology scenario and if they have other people at home to act out with and things like that. So I've been talking to some teachers who have been doing the 20-minute plays and assigning numbers right at attendance, right? So you get in and the whole purpose of a 20-minute play is to give your students the plot up front while introducing them to juicy lines, right? Like these are not lines that they need to necessarily memorize. It's like what Christine was saying. We want kids to grapple with the language, but it's got to be fun, right? So you got to pick lines that are fun to say. And you'll see that across the 20-minute plays. These are ways to introduce a play. And we deliberately pick what we call juicy, sometimes really salacious or shocking lines so that kids get really excited to read the rest of the play or to read the 4 scenes that you're going to give them this year, which constitute the rest of the play in this crisis moment or at any moment, really. You don't have to teach the whole thing. Okay, awesome. Tone and stress. So this is great because you can do a 20-minute play before the activity that we're about to do right now, or you can do it after. The activity that we're about to do together is called Tone and Stress, and it's another one of those Folger essential practices. And all this stuff is going to be organized really nicely on the teacher member website that will go live in July. And selections of this stuff are available on folger.edu and in some other places. But if you want the most comprehensive stuff, you should really check out this beautiful website that we've been working really hard to build for you. Okay, awesome. So reading with tone and stress, you all are going to be doing this. So fasten your seatbelts. I've never done this before. You all are doing things you've never done before. We're supporting you. We've got to do the same thing. So we're all in this together. I don't know how this is going to go, but it goes really well in person with teachers and with students. So I'll tell you that. Let's see how it goes tonight. Awesome. I think I have control of the screen now. And Miriam tells me I need to use the arrows. But I'd mess something up, Miriam, because I'm
We need to unmute everybody.
There we go. Perfect. Yes, we will unmute folks in a moment. The first couple ones, yes, we're going to do all together. So Miriam, I'm clicking the arrows and I can't get it.
I got you. I'll do it.
Thank you. Okay, cool. Perfect. Okay, we got to unmute everybody.
They have that capacity.
Okay, so you're going to unmute yourselves, beautiful
There we go.
people, wonderful colleagues. Okay, here we go. And because it's chaos, I'm going to try this thing that I learned from Amber Phelps, my wonderful colleague at Baltimore City College High School. She counts it down. So we're going to, when I go 3, 2, 1, you're going to do this all together, okay? You're going to just say the word O, okay? 3, 2, 1.
Oh.
Oh.
Awesome.
Lovely, lovely. Let's keep it rolling, Miriam. Okay, this is super quick and nerdy. We all know that O here is an interjection, right? It can express all kinds of emotion. It's used in all kinds of ways in Shakespeare and in other writers, and we're gonna have some fun with that tonight. Some sneakily rigorous fun. All y'all whose kids took the AP exams this week. Okay, awesome. Next one, Miriam. Okay. Tone. So this is not like the if you could mute your
Oops.
this word tone here is not like the tone that we use when we're teaching those AP lit terms, right? So this is tone of voice. It's related, but it's not the same. So we're going to think about tone and how we use our voices, because if there's anything that we know from the Folger method, it's that kids have to embody this language. So let's keep moving, Miriam. Thank you. And then subtext, this is not a word that I usually use outside of this activity, but it's helpful in this activity. So we're going to just share this word. I'm going to ask you some questions about the subtext of these lines and how the subtext changes based on the tone and stress that you use. And again, like, we're not fancy rhetorical term people here at all. These are just words that we are going to share to do this exercise tonight. Okay. So you don't need to say "oh" right now, okay? But in a moment, you're all going to get unmuted again, and we're going to go through a series of slides. And these are slides that you can share with your students. We're going to give you the slide deck, and you can actually do this with your students. And they're going to be directions for you on how you should say the word "oh," okay? So I want you to say the word "oh" with the tone word that you see on the screen. All
Ready?
together. So you got to unmute.
Done.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Oh.
Oh.
Like an ah.
You hear this? These are great.
Okay, hold on. We need to try this one again. Pandemic is over. We are all outside at our favorite restaurant with our favorite people, giving hugs like it's 2019 or 2000. Okay, you are excited.
Give me 1 second. Yep, go ahead, Corinne.
Can we do excited?
Yes.
Awesome.
All right, I'm gonna unmute everyone now. And
Okay, nice. Miriam, would you mind going back to the last slide, please?
yes, I
And
most
then
certainly
I'm going
can.
to ask all of you, thank you. I'm going to ask all of you just to finish this sentence in the chat box right now, okay? Just about that exercise, I noticed. Finish that sentence, I noticed.
I noticed what? Were you planning on changing the screen? Or
Nope, we're just having a conversation in the chat box right now about what you noticed about those slides. There's more to this exercise, right? But we're pausing and we're just reflecting on what happened. I noticed. Great. I noticed that there were different interpretations of expressions. I noticed the same word conveys different meanings depending on tone. I noticed my energy rise. I noticed the length of responses. Yes, there were some very like long, luxurious, lusty O's. I noticed that with each emotion, people interpreted it differently. I noticed I was very in tune with what I was doing and how I was saying it. So same word, different meaning, different subtext. The text did not tell me which way to say it, right? So I had some creative latitude is what I think you're saying, Skip. Different interpretations. Okay, great. Let's keep it moving. So that was tone. And now we're going to move on to stress. Now, stress is a word that we're acutely aware of right now, but we're operating with a different definition right now, not the stress that's familiar to us in our homes right now. But having to do with voice, right? So you can share this with your students. As teachers, we know what this word is, right? We're going to stress certain words in the sentence. So Miriam, if you could go to the next slide, please. Awesome. Okay, so we're calling 2 volunteers whose voices we haven't yet had the joy of hearing tonight. And I don't mean like in unison. I mean, someone who hasn't talked yet. So that's most of you. So 2 volunteers in the chat box. Tell us who you are.
You can also raise your hand as well.
Jeanette, thank you. I see Jeanette's hand, and Aaron.
Aaron, okay, give me one moment. I will find the 2 of you.
Those were the first 2 names I saw. Vicky, I'm seeing yours now, so we'll try to remember you for next time.
All right. Aaron, you are able to unmute yourself, and Jeanette, I believe you're able to unmute yourself as well.
Yeah.
Yep, perfect.
good.
Okay, this is beautiful. This is actually working. Thank you, everybody, for rolling with this. All right, so Jeanette, will you please be reader number 1? Directions will become clear in a moment. And Aaron, you're going to be reader number 2. In a moment, you're going to see a slide that says 1, you're going to take turns reading the sentences, stressing the words in red. Y'all good?
Stress and red. Okay.
Yes.
Great, okay.
All right. Is this
Reader
one?
1.
Okay. I didn't say he killed our king.
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 Thank you. Okay, can we go back, Miriam, to that
Yes,
last
of course.
sentence? How does the subtext change when you stress different words? If you want to unmute yourself and share, you can share that way, or if you want to write something in the chat box, we're listening there too.
It entirely changes. It's there's 7 different sentences.
Can you say a little more about that?
The meaning of each of them is very different. I mean,
So for
the
instance,
words are the same. The words are the same meanings in the dictionary, but the meaning of the sentences is completely different.
so the one that we're looking at right now, I didn't say he killed our king. What's the subtext of that one?
I said he killed our something else.
Yes. Awesome, thanks. And so does anyone want to say anything else about
Thank you.
what they noticed? Thank you for sharing.
I'm seeing in the chat box, oops, so many meanings come from the negative word too. Changes in tone could change action completely. And Jenny says, I think the biggest changes come from stressing pronouns. It changes the intention of the character, such as the objectives.
There's drama.
Yep,
I
and
love it.
the stressed word determines what the speaker is indicating he did say.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Okay, cool. See, are you seeing you can do this with your students, like tomorrow in class?
You can
All right.
also do it the same way that Corinne did it, either having them share out loud or using the chat box as well.
Okay, let's keep it moving. We got a couple more things. If things are about to get really spicy, guys, get excited. Okay, so we're gonna need 2 more volunteers. I believe that Vicky volunteered for the last one, so we're saving you for this one, Vicky, if you're still up for this. And then another volunteer. Sandra, awesome. Vicky and Sandra, we appreciate you. And thank you to Aaron and Jeanette for being the first 2 brave volunteers. Okay, so Sandra, how about you be reader number 1, and Vicky, reader number 2.
You know it was love at first sight for both of us.
You know, it was love at first sight for both of us.
Okay, great. Let's stop there. What's the difference? Anyone?
The first one, it felt like the emphasis on the you meant like you knew this thing. And the second one with the emphasis on the was felt like it was a past thing. Like, you know, it was, and now it's no longer love.
Nice. Let's keep going.
We needed a story to understand what had happened to us.
We needed a story to understand what had happened to us.
What do you notice about those 2? Anyone?
Well, the first one was emphasizing that it was the idea of a story that was needed for the understanding. And the second one, for us, what happened to us? What happened to us? Not to other people, but something had happened to us, and we're trying to figure out what happened.
Hi. I'd also say the first one suggested that we didn't have understanding without it.
Without the story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was maybe even misunderstanding, hard to say.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're reading really, really closely at the level of a sentence, right? And these are sentences, obviously not from Shakespeare, but from other authors. So you can do this with any text. See, we're sneaky like that. We want to show you that you can use these strategies with anything. Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's keep going. We've got more.
What will we do without exile?
What will we do without exile?
What are the differences that you hear there?
I think similarly, in almost in every case, right? Emphasizing what we will do is comparing to, could we do something else? Whereas what would we do without exile, rather than exile is there just comparing it to the absence of exile, I guess. So it's always, the stressed word is comparing it to the opposite of that stressed word.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Nice, like what's not there.
Yeah.
It makes you think about what word wasn't chosen for the stressed word. Great. Okay, cool. Peggy's writing to me, so is Miriam saying, can you finish in 5 minutes? I totally can, everyone. We've got this, all right? Okay, so we're gonna put it all together. We're gonna put it all together right now in a beautiful mishmash of chaos. So everyone unmute yourself, and we're gonna let this chaos in. And sorry, it's a little more chaotic because I can't control the screen, so it's a little bit tricky. Miriam, can you go to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I want you to say these lines with the direction on the screen. So we'll go 3, 2, 1.
Oh, Anthony.
Oh, Anthony.
Beautiful.
Oh, Anthony.
Oh,
how I love thee.
Oh, how I love thee.
On thee.
Oh, I dote on thee.
Oh,
I am out of breath in this fun chase.
Breath in this fun chase.
Oh,
lady.
weep
no
more.
Weep no more.
Beautiful.
Oh,
vile,
intolerable, not to be endured. Oh, to be a pear tree.
In bloom.
Tree in bloom.
In
Bloom.
Woo.
Oh, stars and
Clouds
winds.
and winds.
Clouds and winds.
Oh,
here's the
shoe my baby wore.
Hear my baby war.
I like the lag.
Oh, here's the shoe my baby wore.
Here's the war.
My baby wore.
Miriam, could you go back?
Here's the shoe my baby
My baby
wore.
wore.
Here's the shoe my baby wore.
Great.
The shoe my baby wore.
Where's the R&B version of this?
Slides are getting away from us. Yes, it is the Ballad of Birmingham. So there's surprise and there's mournful. Same line, and we're going to go to the next slide now.
Oh, here's the shoe my baby wore. Oh, here's the shoe my baby wore.
The shoe my baby wore.
Did Romeo's hand shed Tybalt's blood? Did
Romeo's hand shed Tybalt's blood?
Romeo's hand shed Tybalt's blood?
Did Romeo's hand shed Tybalt's blood?
Did Romeo's hand
shed Tybalt's blood?
Did Romeo's hand shed
Tybalt's blood?
I shall
all my best
obey
you, madam.
I love that you're just rolling with it. There's no tone or stress here. But see, this is the thing. Like, you've just internalized all these directions, so you're just rolling with it. I want to hear from three of you. So this is a freestyle take one. So you can like pick your own word or words to stress, and you can pick your own tone. I need a volunteer. Gina, thank you. Freestyle, take it away.
I shall, in all my best, obey you, madam.
Miguel, I see your face on my screen. I'm randomly volunteering you to do this. Are you cool with that?
Sure.
Freestyle, take two, go for it.
I shall, in all my best, obey you, madam.
And a third one.
I see Robert McClung's hand.
Yes, Rob McClung.
Hey, I shall in all my best obey you. Wait, no, hang on. I shall in all my best obey you.
Great. And we're running out of time. Thank you, everybody, for daring and doing this with us. Had we whirled enough in time, we would stop and we would talk about the subtext of each of these. We might pause after a couple variations, after each line, but we don't have whirled enough in time right now. But you're smart teachers and you totally get the drift. So thank you. In the chat box, I want you just to share about this whole exercise, right? What you noticed. Not just tone, not just stress in the chat box. If you could just share, I noticed. We'd really appreciate your feedback.
And you have 1 minute to do that.
And it's a teacher minute. It's a Peggy O'Brien teacher minute. So it's really like 30 seconds, right?
Ooh, no, that's not true. That's totally not true.
Oh, a Corinne Villetta minute would be like 30
It's
seconds.
7:45 Eastern
I know.
time, right? After a long day.
Great. So
Wow.
there's some really great responses in the chat box, which will be available afterwards. Thank you, everybody, for doing that. I'm going to stop talking and turn things over to Peggy and our really wonderful guests.
Yes. I'm going to give you another minute, really, for real, because when we start the next section, we're going to X the chat box. We're going to put it to bed for a little minute.
Can I just shout out one comment? Kelly wrote, this activity was relatively easy and accessible, but it had really sophisticated outcomes. And yeah, if we had more time, we would talk about that, but y'all are smart and you're talking about that in the chat box already. So I'm done.
This is great because now we're moving right to sophisticated outcomes, right? So now I get to introduce to you, and I'm going to be really fast. If I listed all the stuff these guys are famous for, we'd be here all night. So Kate Eastwood Norris is here with us. She is an actor. She is a huge fave in the theater in Washington and also lots of other places. She's a giant fave in the theater at the Folger Theater and also with Folger Education. And she is with Cody Nickel, who is also a well-known, fabulous actor in DC and elsewhere. Both of these guys have done a lot of Shakespeare. They also do a lot of contemporary theater. They both most recently were in a production of Merry Wives of Windsor which is really a crappy play, as everybody knows. Oh wait, Kate has this picture. Yes, there's Kate with her flip. And there's Cody as Dr. Caius, and they were hilariously funny. And they also happen to be married, which is why they're in the same room at the same time. So they are gonna, this little tone and stress stuff is just a little bit of a bridge to what we're gonna learn from them and with them now. So go for it, you guys.
Hey, that was wonderful. I'm stealing that, Corinne, totally stealing that whole tone and stress thing. This has a lot to do with tone and stress. The scene we picked, it was from Richard III, and it's Act 4, Scene 4, and it's between Richard and Elizabeth, and they're arguing. And basically, I looked at it in terms of using the rhetorical device of repetition, meaning characters repeat each other's words. So we'll talk more about that, and we'll talk more about what an actor does with rhetorical devices, as opposed to just simply trying to seem smart. There's lots of other things behind it. And then we'll do the scene again according to your redirection on stress and tone. So I think we'll set up the scene.
Yeah, I'll do a quick setup. So Richard has ascended to the throne through terrible and murderous means. He's killed several people. He had the young boys killed. And he is now trying to convince Elizabeth, the mother of the two boys he's recently killed, to become queen, to let him marry her daughter, who is his niece, Anne. So there's a lot of impediments to this marriage, but what he wants in the scene is to get to get Elizabeth to go woo Anne for him.
Okay, so here we go. I'm playing Elizabeth. Okay. What were I best to say? Her father's brother would be her lord? Or shall I say her uncle? Or that he slew her brothers and her uncles? Under what title shall I woo for thee that God, the law, my honor, and her love can make seem pleasing to her tender years?
Say she shall be a high and mighty queen.
To veil the title as her mother doth?
Say I will love her everlastingly.
But how long shall that title ever last?
Sweetly enforce under her life's fair end.
But how long fairly shall her sweet life last?
As long as heaven and nature lengthens it.
As long as Hell and Richard likes of it.
Say I, her sovereign, am her subject low.
But she, your subject, loathes such sovereignty.
Be eloquent in my behalf to her.
An honest tale speeds best being plainly told.
Then plainly to her tell my loving tale.
Plain and not honest is too harsh a style.
Your reasons are too quick and shallow.
Oh no, my reasons are too deep and dead. Too deep and dead, poor infants in their graves.
Harp not on that string, madam. That is past.
Harp on it still shall I till heartstrings break.
Now by my George, my garter, and my crown.
Profaned, dishonored, and the third usurped.
I swear.
By nothing, for this is no oath. If something thou wouldst swear to be believed, swear then by something thou hadst not wronged.
Then by myself.
Thyself is self-misused.
Now by the world.
'Tis full of thy foul wrongs.
My father's death.
Thy life hath it dishonored.
Why then by God?
God's wrong is most of all. Okay, so there we go.
Woo!
Woo! Hot times. So basically, if you notice the rhetorical devices here that fall under repetition, there's repetition of a word, that used with the same meaning used by the other person. There's inferring the repetition of a word by using its opposite, life, death. There's all sorts of crazy Latin terms for these things, but there's also beyond just words being repeated, the phrases that each actor has are of approximately the same length and corresponding structure. So there's repetition of structure and length moving back and forth like that. And then also interruption is not a rhetorical device, but I think it does involve one person's response to another person's choice of words. And so you saw Elizabeth near the end of that scene just start slamming it down and slamming it down. So let's talk a little bit about the objectives of the scene.
Yeah, so just like tone and stress and subtext, and just like the rhetorical stuff that Kate was just talking about, all of these are tools with which we try to unpack and understand this language, try to make it accessible for your students or for an audience. It's all about taking from the page and putting in front of and making it clear and exciting and accessible. For an actor, one of the main tools, really the first tool that we have is we ask the question, what does this character want? Because that really should be the first question that any actor asks anytime about their character. There are lots of fancy words about it, objective, motivation, whatever, but really intention, really that's just boils down to what do I want and how am I going to get it? Those are the two main things, and stress and tone and subtext are all tied into that. Rhetorical devices are all tied into that, but really what Richard wants in this scene is to have Elizabeth agree to woo Anne for him. Now, he has many tactics in the scene, and he fails throughout the scene because her objective to stop him and make him realize that this is an idiotic move, her tactics work better. She beats me in this rhetorical game. And I eventually kind of give up and I'm just like, just do it, just do it.
And then I lose because I have to do it because he's
I'm
the king. So I win, but I lose.
And there's lots of ways you can change one's tactics, and that's stress and that's tone. Those are tactical movements about like, oh, I can be really sweet in this scene. That's my tactic to get what I want, or I can be really smart and beat her down with my smarts, or I could, different things like that. And I think we can switch now the tone and stress in this scene by playing slightly different tactics. Like maybe I'm really excited by her smarts, that she's so smart and that she can turn my phrases on me, that I find that fun for a while. So that would change how I stress stuff. There are other things. If you guys had ideas about how we could change it, we're happy to hear those, but we'll give it another read here.
Yeah. So
I just say one thing before you guys, just insert one little sentence before you guys give it another read. And that is, when Cody and Kate and I were talking about what they would do, and when they suggested this scene, I think this was a great scene for them to do because it is not as familiar to those of us who teach high school as a whole lot of other scenes. And so the idea is we come to it in some ways like our students come to Shakespeare, right? I mean, like we're not like for Richard III. I didn't immediately go, oh yeah, that. So that's, if there's a fraction of you that is yearning for something more familiar, know that it's on me, that I think the bigger learning for all of us here is the fact that this scene is not so familiar.
And we have a little list of examples for Hamlet, Macbeth, Midsummer Night's Dream, and
R&J
and Mackers, of where you can find something like this or not, because some of the plays don't necessarily contain it, but we'll talk about that at the end.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, who would like to see which character which way? What tone, stress, objective, how would you like to redirect us?
And we have some of our own ideas if no one steps up.
The chat box is now open again. So if you want to throw it in the chat box, or
why don't you guys go ahead with one of your picks?
Okay, we'll go
Cody, right?
We'll go with Richard having more fun, and we're enjoying the game. I mean, it is a game, when you think about it. It's like the most high stakes version of tennis you could ever come across. So let's see, we'll try it as more of the game winning until it's no longer a game, and see how that goes. And I'll super stress the repetition of words. How about that? Okay. Let's start from just say she shall be a high mighty queen.
Great.
Okay.
Say she shall be a high and mighty queen.
To veil the title as her mother doth.
Say, I will love her everlastingly.
Oh, how long shall that title ever last?
Sweetly enforce unto her fair life's end.
But how long fairly shall her sweet life last?
As long as heaven and nature lengthens it.
As long as hell and Richard likes of it.
Say, I, her sovereign, am her subject low.
But she, your subject, loathes such sovereignty.
Be eloquent to her on my behalf.
An honest tale speeds best being plainly told.
Then plainly to her tell my loving tale.
Plain and not honest is too harsh a style.
Your reasons are too shallow and too quick.
No. Oh no, my reasons are too deep and dead. Too deep and dead, poor infants in their graves.
Harp not on that string, madam, that is past.
Harp on it, shall I till heartstrings break?
Oh, no, by my George, my garter, and my crown.
Profane, dishonored, and the third usurped.
I swear.
By nothing, for this is no oath. If something thou wouldst swear to be believed, swear then by something that thou hast not wronged.
Oh, then by myself.
Thyself is self-misused.
Now by the world.
'Tis full of thy foul wrongs.
My father's death.
Thy life hath it dishonored.
Oh, why then by God.
God's wrong is most of all. Okay, there we go. So there was a thing where the stress was a little more playful, which is also a way that rhetoric is used, not just to win an argument, but to show wit. You know, that's another way that Shakespeare uses it. So we sort of brought that in. And then after the break where she talks about her son, she's like, okay, no more game. And he picks up that ball. She slams it before he even gets it across the net. What's my time like? What's her time like?
You're good. You have like 15 more minutes.
Yep. Oh, okay. Well,
we have 2 suggestions in the chat box. If
oh, great. Yes.
What?
Okay, one is the 2 of you switch roles, and how does voice, gender, visage, height affect that?
Great.
And then the second one is, what about a steady crescendo to get the last word in at the end when they're laying it down?
Okay, by laying it down.
Jess,
when we're.
You got to unmute yourself and explain what you mean.
Wait, let me there you go, Jess.
Oh, interruptions.
Oh, laying
Like
down.
at the end when you're like on top of each other, you know?
Okay. Yeah. So you get the last word. Okay, great.
All right. Well, first we'll switch genders.
Switch genders.
Should we switch seats?
No.
Just what were I best to say? Her father's brother would be her lord. Or shall I say her uncle? Or he that slew her brothers and her uncles. Under what title shall I woo for thee? That God, the law, my honor, and her love can make seem pleasing to her tender years.
Say, she shall be a high and mighty queen.
To veil the title as her mother doth.
Well, say, I will love her everlastingly.
But how long shall that title ever last?
Sweetly enforce until her fair life's end.
But how long fairly shall her sweet life last?
As long as heaven and nature lengthens it.
As long as hell and Richard likes of it.
Say I, her sovereign, am her subject low.
But she, your subject, loathes such sovereignty.
Be eloquent in my behalf to her.
An honest tale speeds best being plainly told.
Then plainly to her tell my loving tale.
Plain and not honest is too harsh a style.
Oh, your reasons are too shallow and too quick.
Oh, no. My reasons are too deep and dead. Too deep and dead, poor infants in their graves.
Oh, harp not on that string, madam. That is past.
Harp on it still shall I, till heartstrings break.
Oh, now by George, my garter and my crown.
Profaned, dishonored, and the third, usurped.
No, I swear.
By nothing, for this is no oath. If something thou wouldst swear to be believed, swear then by something that thou hast not wronged.
Then by myself.
Thyself is self-misused.
Now by the world.
'Tis full of thy foul wrongs.
My father's death.
Thy life hath it dishonored.
Why then by God.
God's wrong is worst of all.
Well, there you go.
I hadn't practiced those lines.
Yeah. I love that part.
It's
a great part.
This is such an incredible scene. I mean, this scene, the whole thing, the book ends on either side of it. It's just terrible and wonderful and full of.
And so much longer.
So juicy.
This is like 3 out of 7 pages of this same stuff going on. It's really astounding to track.
Yeah.
I think if you think about scenes like this, where people are sharing language or they're repeating words, they're using each other's words, they're changing the meaning of the words, they're keeping the meaning, whatever it is. In a classroom, if you in person, in seat, as it were, it's fun maybe to put 2, everybody wants to be with the winner, you know, so you have a Richard side and a Liz side, and then people are listening to 2 actors up front doing this scene, and whoever wins, they walk to that side of the room, you know, so there's going to be back and forth a lot. And then maybe you'll notice too that there's just a whole bunch of people staying on Liz's side. So it's an interesting way because you have to make up your mind about who made the point, which I think is fascinating. Now, if we're in Zoom, you can have a piece of paper with a Richard column and a Liz column and think of it in terms of like a tennis match, and whoever serves, they get in the serve, you write you have a serve column and a slam column. And then whoever serves up the first language, you write Richard in the serve column, and then slam is for Liz, who takes the language and puts it in the slam column. But it makes you have to decide, it makes you have to listen, and then you can get really intense and talk about, well, did they change the meaning of the word? Did they, Let me read the text, the chat here. Too plain and shallow is where the moral dynamic becomes visibly. Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the big switch in the scene.
Or 2 pieces of paper to hold up. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or a serve and a slam.
Or and there's stuff that you can make the actors do that also helps in this general style. Like every time that I feel she successfully deflected my attempt, that I have to recognize it somehow, like with a clap, or that I move further away, or that kind of thing.
You walk back and forth. There's
Yeah.
so many ways to illustrate it, and it's just super fun and fascinating.
And these are games and tricks we use in rehearsals for shows that we use now. Unpacking Shakespeare is not easy, and it is so much fun. I mean, ultimately, as you dig in and it kind of starts to come out, it's a joy. Like the portal, I hadn't seen the portal quote till tonight, that it's not a barrier, but a portal. I mean, I think it's very true. And,
it's beautiful.
And
we're brilliant here. Just saying.
You what?
We're brilliant here.
You are. Now here's some examples from some plays you might be doing. Get your pen or pencil here. And I guess we
can email this.
I can share this document.
Yes, share it with us and we'll post it on the, on the webpage.
Okay, it sort of has, well, I'll make it more, less like my okay, so Hamlet does this all the time. Especially in his case, not necessarily when he's winning arguments, but when he's just messing with people, which of course in most instances involves Polonius. For example, there's in 3:2, Polonius says, I did enact Julius Caesar. I was killed at the Capitol. Brutus killed me. And Hamlet says, it was a brute part of him to kill so capital a calf there. So he takes, 4 words and changes the meaning, maybe 3. So that's Hamlet just, on like in top form, messing with Polonius. And he's not trying to win an argument there. He's just trying to poke at him as he does. Also, his same exchange in that scene about country matters with Ophelia. That's a whole other thing where he's spinning words. People are misunderstanding words. Sometimes it seems like he's trying to make sure people misunderstand him, which gets them off their balance. And let's see, also Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, another, the section about Denmark being a prison, that whole metaphor. In this case, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern don't understand what Hamlet's saying, and Hamlet continues with the metaphor regardless. So that's interesting. And then the gravedigger, of course, the gravedigger uses it for some reason. Now, yes, it's because it's funny, but I think the gravedigger needs to be doing it using language and spinning it for more than simply cracking jokes. According to the actor's interpretation of the character, the gravedigger could be unwittingly demonstrating his own lack of intelligence, or on the other hand, the gravedigger is trying to mess with Hamlet, thereby demonstrating his superior intelligence. So that would be probably come down to tone and stress.
And subtext.
And subtext, all those 3 magical things. So you see that rhetorical devices are not just used to win arguments, even though that's what they were for in ancient Greece. In Hamlet, the purposes seem to be to tease, evade, show off wit, or confuse. Now in Macbeth, besides maybe the porter here and there, it's rarely used, the repetition of people's words. And I was thinking about why. And I'm thinking maybe because it's a play about a mind unraveling, instead of being a man at the top of his game. It's rarely funny, except with the porter. And the main source of argument is between Macbeth and himself. So Macbeth sharing his own language probably was not as interesting to Shakespeare, I don't know, as it is when 2 people do it together. So that's the only thing I can think of in Macbeth. And if there is something you can think of, by all means, put it in there and tell me too. But it's not as prevalent as say in Hamlet or Love's Labour's Lost or Much Ado About Nothing or any of those sort of witty plays, or Richard III, which is not necessarily witty. Midsummer Night's Dream, mostly the play is where the humor, the wit, is it's of the circumstantial kind. It's not the witty kind. It's circumstantial humor, and the arguments in the case of the lovers take place during moments of being drugged and also of great physicality. you know, where the brain is working less than the heart and the body. So they don't have a lot of back and forth. There's lots of use of metaphor and other rhetorical devices, but sharing language is not quite so prevalent. Theseus, however, drops it to show his wit in this case and to make points, to win arguments. For instance, Hermia in Act 1, Scene 1, I would my father looked but with my eyes. And Theseus says, rather your eyes must with his judgment look. So he takes eyes, he means the same thing here. He's not changing the meaning, but the repetition is still there because the word is repeated and also the length of the sentences and the structure correspond. So that is repeated. And then again in 5-1, when Hippolyta doesn't want to see the mechanical show because Philostrate just kind of panned it, he says they can do nothing of this kind. And then Theseus says, the kinder we to give them thanks for nothing. So he takes kind and changes the meaning, and also nothing. He changes the meaning of nothing. So that's some examples from there, and I'll send that document to you guys.
And I just grabbed Romeo and Juliet to look at a couple things. The balcony scene 2-2 is full of this kind of stuff, where, and in this case, actually, both the people in the scene want the same thing. They just don't know it yet, and they're they're talking around each other. But you know, where I take the let's see. The moon section, you know, swear not by the moon, I'll swear by the moon, I'll swear not by the moon. Juliet continually keeps grabbing his language and turning it around and making her points throughout the scene because she's the smarter one in the play. And it's throughout. I mean, Mercutio does it throughout the whole play. I mean, it's really, as Kate said, it's a badge of wit. It's the characters who are wits or smart or funny that often use this type of rhetorical language. But going back to just the objective idea and what do these characters want? Any of these exercises that we were talking about, you know, who won the moment or who made the point or who lost, that can be done to any Shakespeare scene, Mm-hmm. And you know, like in Romeo and Juliet, the Friar Romeo scene, the Banished scene, that's tough language that they both have in these monologues, and they're not back and forth, quick back and forths. And it's a great exercise to make the friar really do something physical or tell Romeo, oh, that point landed on me, that point landed on me, and then in reverse, when the friar is going at him in the Banished speech, how ashamed he should be and all the reasons he should be okay. That's one where it's great to have Romeo go, oh yeah, that landed, that landed, that landed. Mm-hmm. Or no, that point didn't land, that point didn't land. Make the actor work harder, make him make sense of what they're saying.
Yeah, it was like that. I don't know if you all saw that Phoebe thing I did a couple weeks ago, but half the humor in that is watching Silvius respond to what she's saying. So it's a great, I mean, it's always my favorite thing and biggest challenge, at least when I'm directing young actors of Shakespeare, to make them understand that when someone has a speech this big, it doesn't mean they can go check their phones, you know, they gotta be on stage with them. So that's what we have, and we can answer some questions or do it again or whatever you like.
Somebody wants you to poke me.
Anybody have questions or comments?
Yeah, every time.
There was one more suggestion about how to do this another way at the bottom of the chat box, and I don't know if you guys want to take a look at that.
The jab every time she does it?
Yeah.
We can do, why don't we do it just with the first half, down to your reasons are too shallow and too quick.
Okay, so when I repeat a word or when I change the meaning of a word?
Every time she repeats.
Every time I repeat.
His word.
Okay, so a word that is the antithesis, I will not poke.
Let's
all right, how about
different for the antithesis, all right?
So like antithesis and a repetition.
Yeah.
All right.
Something. Maybe the antithesis I don't know.
No, I'll fake punch him.
Like nudge him or something.
I'll fake punch him for an antithesis and I'll poke him for a repetition.
All right.
All right, I'm going to slow down a little because this is
okay.
Let's do it from Say She Shall Be.
Say she shall be a high and mighty queen.
To veil the title as her mother doth.
Say I will love her everlastingly.
But how long shall that title ever last?
Sweetly enforce unto her fair life's end.
But how long fairly shall her sweet life last?
As long as heaven and nature lengthens it.
As long as hell and Richard likes of it.
Say I, her sovereign, and her subject love.
But she, your subject, loathes such sovereignty.
Be eloquent in my behalf to her.
An honest tale speeds best being plainly told.
Then plainly to her,
Oh, you can punch me.
Tell my loving tale.
Plain and not honest is too harsh a style.
Your reasons are too quick and too shallow and too quick.
That's very interesting.
Thanks for that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Right. So since this is a happy marriage, we should like leave you right there. And thank you a lot. That was so fabulous to see how you guys come at, I mean, in your profession, how you combat tone and stress and how that helps you, keeps you unpacking all this stuff. That was really wonderful. Thank you a lot.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm looking at the clock, and so we need to let Cody and Kate go, but we also need to let the rest of you guys go. Thank you so much. Miriam, you're gonna wrap us all up for the night, yeah?
Yes, I'm ready to close us out for the night. There we go. So thank you, Kate. Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Christine, Corinne. And we already have the additional, I should have changed this. We already have the topics for next week. As a reminder, we are doing pair text. And then all of our resources are going to be posted on Thursday evening, minus the one group that still needs to meet. And if you want to sign up for BART Notes to get the latest information, everything sent right to your email, you can email me or go on to the Folger.edu website to sign up for BART Notes. And we are just so glad to be back and to see everyone, and for all of you to have joined us as well. This recording will be posted on the Teaching COVID page tomorrow as well. And with that,
good night.
I say good night.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Kate and Cody, so much. Thanks, Corinne. Thanks, all of you. Thanks, Christine.